Good morning, everybody. Mike Naso here from IPR 365 with the latest on the tropics. And we do have a new hurricane in the Atlantic Basin. And even though it's late October, that does not mean threats for the Caribbean and even the United States are no longer possible. And when we take a look out there right now, we have our two systems. It's not just our hurricane. We have Hurricane Sandy, which is here to the south of Jamaica. Note the eye popping out there, very ominous, a strengthening hurricane in the western Caribbean in October, not what you want to see. And we have Tony out here in the north central Atlantic, not looking all that great, and Tony's going to be a non-factor in the next couple of days, but Sandy is going to be one we're going to have to worry about as it continues now to approach the island of Jamaica. Let's look at the latest now on Hurricane Sandy as of 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The eye of the hurricane was at 17.1 north, 76.7 west. Winds were up to 80 miles per hour, so it's a potent Category 1, gusting to 95, 100. That pressure plummeting now 973 millibars, and is moving north-northeast at 12. So even though this track from here doesn't appear to have an eastward component, it actually does, and that north-northeast motion should continue and bring the system into Jamaica and Cuba over the next 12 hours or so. Now, the important thing is intensification. How much should this intensify? Well, as long as the center remains over water and does not interact with land, intensification could occur. So if Sandy decides to dance around Jamaica like so many of these systems have done over the last 10 years, I mean, we've seen Iris and Isidore and Lily and Ivan and Charlie. They've all done that dance around the island of Jamaica. Dennis did it in 2005. If Hurricane Sandy decides, I'm going to move a little to the right of the island and kind of loop around, there is more opportunity for this to get stronger, especially with that tight core of strong winds it is building. Regardless, once it moves over Cuba, it should begin to weaken. However, it could become more of a hybrid, extratropical type of system that you see a lot of times with accelerating storms in the late part of the season. And by the time the weekend ends, this thing should be heading on off towards the northeast out to sea. We have a trough approaching, move out, right? Well, not so fast. We'll talk about that in a second. There are some concerns that this may have a little bit more to do for the United States. There's the wind field. You can see hurricane winds right around the eye of the storm. Tropical storm force winds now impacting areas of Jamaica. As the hurricane pulls on up, you will see hurricane force winds potentially on that eastern shoreline of the island of Jamaica. Now, we do have some watches and warnings. You'll note for Florida, we're going to have very, very strong winds. As this system pulls onto the northeast, you're going to have winds coming counterclockwise around that circulation, and that's going to just jackhammer the coastline of Florida from the Gold Coast all the way down to the Keys with very, very heavy surf and strong winds. Rip currents, certainly if you were going to go in the water, don't go in the water as Sandy's passing by, because it's not going to be very pretty as the hurricane pulls on off towards the north and northeast. Keep in mind, be thankful Sandy's not making a track like this into Florida, because that would leave it over water a much longer time, and it would probably be a major hurricane. Nonetheless, still a dangerous hurricane as it pulls on off towards the island of Jamaica at this point in time. Now here's the model guidance for Sandy, and you can see it's tightly clustered over the next 12 to 24 hours, somewhere eastern Cuba from, say, Cabo Cruz on over to Guantanamo, and after that into the Turks Caicos, a little bit to the west of there, nonetheless squarely through the Bahamas, and then on up towards the northeast. But note what the models do. Look at the GFDL, looping this thing back into New England. I mean, that is a terrifying thought, that this hurricane, what we're looking at right now, this monster brewing down here for Jamaica, this Category 1 potent hurricane that is taking up a huge amount of area, that this thing will slam into New England as an extratropical type of storm, a perfect storm type of setup, after getting a shot of energy from the trough moving off the East Coast, that is a very, very scary thought. There won't be no trick-or-treating on Long Island if that happens, I'll tell you that right now. So when you look at these models and you see a lot of this hooking to the left here, I mean, that is just a shot left. That is straight out to sea and then boom, right back. And even though you'd probably only be talking about the equivalent of a Category 1 or 2 hurricane, you're still talking about a massive impact. Look at the GFDL model, 930 millibars. Now look at the winds, only 80 miles an hour. Okay, so a minimal hurricane wind speed. But just imagine 930 millibars. That's a Category 4 pressure. Look at these isobars here. Imagine the surf and the surge coming at astronomical high tides. It would be absolutely devastating. Now, we try not to hype things up, and I'm trying not to hype this up because this may well head right out to sea and not be a problem. But I'm telling you, this hurricane, this Category 1 potent little thing down here south of Jamaica spinning up there, this could really be one to remember if it ends up getting a burst of energy from the approaching trough and slamming into New England. I cannot underscore that point enough. Look at the eye of the hurricane, Hurricane Sandy, strengthening. I mean, it's a nice looking little hurricane, but it's those nice looking little ones that could cause a lot of problems, especially with wind. If this eye wall's building pretty good and it clips the eastern part of Jamaica, you could really be looking at some nasty wind damage there, not to mention the surf and the swells. Now, I did want to touch on, of course, our other system out there, Tropical Storm Tony. As of 11 a.m. is at 28.5, 45.4, winds of 50. It's moving east-northeast at 20. It's getting out of here. It's not looping back anywhere. 1,000 millibars, and you can see Tony on the satellite image there, not looking all that impressive at all as it continues to weaken and pull on off towards the northeast. So Sandy's what we're dealing with right now, not Tony. You can see Tony has a very little wind field and it's not going to affect anybody. I don't even think any ships will probably be within that small area, but Sandy will. Sandy's going to affect a lot of people, starting in Jamaica, moving on to eastern Cuba, then the Bahamas, perhaps Bermuda, certainly Bermuda in the form of high seas, and the same goes for the United States. We'll continue to watch Hurricane Sandy as it continues to impact the Caribbean Sea.